For 3 years, I've been sports betting, placing over 16,000 wagers during that time. Looking back at all of my losing tickets, I've lost over $700,000. I'm going to provide you the top 4 mistakes that I was consistently making that contributed to those losing slips. This took me 3 years to figure out exactly what I was doing wrong. And now, over the course of the next 10 minutes, you're going to know exactly what those mistakes are. So sit back and relax because this is going to save you so much time and money. The first mistake I was making was my over-reliance on betting on favorites. What I've come to learn is don't be afraid of betting on those underdogs, specifically in that plus 101 to plus 130 range. So when we're looking at an odds calculator right here, when I type in plus 101, remember all odds are associated or tied to a win probability. So that means we have a 49.75% chance. And if I take this up to plus 130, we have a 43.5% chance. When we're talking about this specific odds range, it's slightly worse than a flip of a coin. And in some instances, we're talking razor thin. But there is so much value in this range. So looking at this example right here, Guardians versus Rockies, the first half total runs, meaning the first 5 innings under 5.5. Back in the day, I was so naturally inclined to just want to bet on the over because most of the sports books saw this as the favorite, and because it was the favorite, I just felt that it had a better chance of hitting. But what I quickly realized was betting the safe favorites didn't always work out in my favor, and that the underdogs hit almost nearly as much as the favorites because we're dealing with the odds range that's within a flip of a coin. There is a ton of value in this particular range, and using a tool like ODDSJAM helps me identify that value in the market. Using my code Billy35 linked in the description will give you a 1-week free trial and then 35% off your first month. I highly recommend that you try ODDSJAM. Now, you can also use a site like scoresandodds.com, which is completely free if you want to do your own line shopping to find value in the market. Or using covers.com is another free website that I like to use to identify some value. Like right here on this Timberwolves Mavericks game, you can see DraftKings has this spread at minus 1.5 at minus 110, where you can get this at BetMGM at minus 2.5 at minus 110. So we would naturally want to bet this over at DraftKings, BetRivers, or FanDuel because we're getting an extra point in the same odds. Something that I wasn't embracing early on in my sports betting journey was that sports are unpredictable and random at times. Before Game 6 of the NBA Western Conference semifinals, Nuggets versus Timberwolves, if you would have came up to me earlier in the day and said, "Hey Billy, I'll give you the Nuggets plus 44.5 tonight," I would have bet every single penny on my bank account that the Nuggets would cover the spread. But what happened? They lost by 45. Stop gravitating towards the favorites and embrace those underdogs. I challenge you to hold a 50-50 mix each day of your portfolio in terms of half your bets are favorites and half your bets are underdogs. And keep those underdogs, like I mentioned, from that plus 101 to plus 130 range. The beauty of betting on underdogs is you don't need to win nearly as many bets in order to turn a profit. Let me show you. Back over here at the odds calculator, let's say for 1 whole month, you just specifically bet plays that are at plus 120 odds. Well, as you can see, if you're hitting above 45.5% throughout the entire month, you're going to be making serious cash. So even if you only win 48% of your bets, betting on this odds range, you're going to be very profitable. Before we hop over to the second mistake, I need you to smash that subscribe button if you want to beat the sports books. I upload videos every week teaching you how you can become a profitable sports bettor, and you're not going to want to miss a video. The second mistake, which ties back to the first mistake, was my sports bias was getting in the way and was contributing to so many of my losing bets. Now, before I dive deeper into this mistake, I will say this. If you are someone who watches a team or a player 24/7, you can find edges on your own without having to use a sports betting software. If you watch every Indiana Pacers basketball game and you understand how head coach Rick Carlisle likes to use his roster during the regular season, and you know which players are possibly going to have reduced minutes or increased minutes due to maybe their play or any type of maybe nagging injuries that are going on, or based off of certain matchups, certain players right now are playing really well or they're not playing so well, you can use all that information to your advantage. For the vast majority of sports bettors who cannot stay on top of the news 24/7, or they don't follow a team or a player around the clock, then using the sports betting market as your reference is the best route to take, in my opinion. I'm from Pittsburgh, and I can't stand the Baltimore Ravens or the Philadelphia Flyers, but that exact bias hurts my bottom line when it comes to sports betting. Those teams are going to win some games throughout the regular season, and I shouldn't limit myself from missing out on those opportunities just because I don't want to see them succeed. For many sports bettors, the number one bias that they constantly ignore is betting on the unders because it's boring. But the truth is, unders win, especially if you were following the NFL this past season. Unders won a lot. Also, my recency bias was playing a major factor into why I was losing so much. I was overvaluing recent performance with certain teams and I was falling in love with them, thinking to myself, there's no way they can lose. My emotional betting got in the way and I was missing out on opportunities, and I was spending my time wagering on plays that had little to no value because I was so emotionally invested. Comment down below that one team or player that you will never root for no matter what happens. For me, it's the Cleveland Browns. I want you to really listen closely on this one. Is betting more mainline markets compared to player prop markets? Back when I first started, over 90% of my bets day in and day out were locked on player props, and then I would have only a few mainline plays. Now, when I say mainline plays or markets, I mean money lines, spreads, or totals. My mistake was focusing too much time on player prop markets when I should focus my time on mainline markets because they are way more stable and they take on more liquidity compared to player props. Over here on FanDuel, let's say when I wanted to bet on player rebounds for like Derrick Jones Jr. Let's say I wanted to bet $500. As you can see, FanDuel's only going to let me wager up to $480.20. Now, over here on the mainline markets, if I wanted to bet on the Mavericks to win the game tonight, as you can see, FanDuel will let me wager just over $18,000. And that's really important. Here's why. This high liquidity means that a lot of sports bettors, including sharps, can get a lot of money down. When markets open up, sharps go in and grab that value right away, putting down tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in these mainline markets. So with more bets and more money coming into this particular market, we really can fine tune the odds and understand right before tip-off what the true probability of this game will be. The issue with player props is, as you could just see from that rebounds opportunity right there, that there's so many different players and so many different stats and markets of player props that we can wager on. So with player prop markets, it's really hard to figure out if this is a sharp play because there's less betting volume, less liquidity, and it's hard to figure out if we can rely on these indicators like we do for the main market plays. I'm not saying that you shouldn't bet on player prop markets. There's definitely value to be had in that market, but spend more of your time and energy on mainline markets. You're going to be able to get a better, accurate depiction of what the true possibility and probability is for those odds, and that's how you're going to be able to identify if you're getting value or not. The fourth mistake is the most important out of all of these, in my opinion, which is back in the day, I didn't have any type of bankroll management strategy. You're never really going to be able to understand as a sports bettor if you're profitable or not if you're not sticking to a consistent bankroll management strategy, setting a budget per day of how much money you're comfortable wagering or losing in a certain day. Also, what percentage of that bankroll are you going to wager per day? And then also, what percentage of that bankroll are you going to wager per play? Tracking your bets is going to tie directly to bankroll management. All of this you need to be up to date on, whether it's every day or at least once a week, going through the entire scope of all of your betting volume to know exactly how well or not well you're doing. Constantly switching things up every single day is a recipe for disaster for you. Keep things simple and have a basic routine so that you can follow something every week or every month. That's going to provide you stability. And as a sports bettor, we're constantly dealing with ups and downs, and you need some type of foundation that you can stand on. Whatever size your bankroll is, then you want to make sure you're wagering 1 to 3% of that bankroll per play, and in my opinion, no more than 25% of that bankroll per day. If you can start to work on these mistakes that I made one by one, I promise you your sports betting journey will absolutely change. You won't master these overnight, but start working on them one by one right now. Don't ever hesitate to reach out to me on Twitter and ask for my opinion or advice. I'm here to help. Now all you need is to take these mistakes and link these to the 6 habits that I use every day to help me make thousands of dollars sports betting. Click this video right here to find out the habits that have made me rich sports betting. I break down each one step by step so that you can implement this into your strategy and start earning right now.